Do we have everyone we knew was coming? Since it's 5:02, could we call the meeting to order?
In just 1 second, I'm getting this going here.
So it'll be 5:02 in 1 second.
Okay, Doctor.
Okay. Then I'm going to call the meeting to order. I think that'll be 5:03 now, or?
Correct.
5:03, okay, good. Okay, do we need to take roll call, or?
With this being audio to the public,
Yes.
then you should do roll call, yes.
Okay.
Okay,
There's video too, right? Yeah.
okay. Kyle, you want to start?
So, I'll go Kyle Markerson.
Joe Clark,
Melissa Adamson.
Sarah Clark.
Melissa Caff.
Barb Amsler,
Karen Dietz.
Mary Ellen Howell. Ann Marin.
Debbie Holmes.
Susan Garrett. Megan Heck.
we get everyone? Is there any public participation?
under public participation, I'd like to just say a few things. First, on behalf of the entire Board of Health and the public in general, I extend my appreciation for agreeing to serve on this committee. It is a very important committee, and thank you for that. Tonight on the agenda is the budget, and at the committee level is where we would like to see the budget questioned and analyzed. If you see something on here that you want changed, speak up. If you see something that's missing that you'd want on here, speak up. We would like to get the budget hashed out here at the Finance Committee level, so when it goes to the full board, it does not have to have a prolonged debate before adoption. Yes, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Any new or unfinished business? I don't know that we received any minutes.
There are no, we double checked, right, Darlene? There were no minutes.
There were
No minutes, Joe.
Alrighty, did everybody get a chance to look at the budget worksheet? Okay, and Karen, you were gonna talk to us about,
I'll go through the packet.
oh, goodness.
Okay, what I gave you tonight, kind of summarizing what the budget is for the year, and then if you have any questions, just let me know. So overall, we've remained flat. We do have some additional grant dollars coming in. So the net effect on revenue is an increase of about $561,000. So some of them increased. We got a new respiratory grant for $600,000, and then some of the grants decreased. So the net effect is the 561 increase in revenue. That also includes the $25,000 that you were asking about in the vital records. That's part of that total also. And the reason we increased the $25,000 in vital records is because in 22 and 23 we were at 100,000. Last year we only budgeted 75, so this year we budgeted at 100. So that's for that increase. So majority of our budget is grants. It's about 47% of Department 51's budget. And then the others are smaller things. Fees are second, and then permits and licenses, and then the rest go from there. The vaccine inventory, that is just the value of the free vaccine that we get from the state. We have to budget $300,000, and then what they do at the end of the year is they do an entry to actually record the value of what we did receive for the year. So, expenditure-wise, we are up about $724,722. This is due to, again, the changes in the grant dollars, the additional respiratory grant, so there's expenses there of about $600,000. And then we had some phase 2 salary adjustments that happened in July of this year, which were about $189,000. So that's an estimate of what the value will be for next year. When county budgets the salary or the positions for personnel, they budget based on vacant positions at the time. She doesn't budget for, she budgets for filled, not vacant positions at the time of budget. Plus they have a 2% holdback for salaries. So again, projected revenue is up about 11% from last year, and then projected expenses are up about 9.5%. The difference between the expenditures and the revenue is about $2.6 million, or 32% of our budget. And it's the impact on the county general fund. That doesn't include any of our special funds, it doesn't include the TV fund, and it doesn't include the fringe costs for non-grant positions. County covers all those costs. The only fringe costs that we have in our budget are for grant positions. So, the merit increase is projected at 3.5% for the new year, starting in December. And again, expense costs, our biggest portion is our personnel costs, which is about 76% of our budget. For TB, we increased slightly in fees. We went up about $2,000 from last year. And then we increased our Medicaid dollars for TB by about $4,200 because we are billing more through Medicaid. The special funds remain flat. Those are the Animal Shelter Fund and the Health Scholarship Fund. We left those flat. The Animal Shelter Fund covers costs of veterinary services and supplies not routinely budgeted. So those are like extenuating circumstances, right?
Something over and above your regular, maybe an extra x-ray or a procedure that has to be done. We wouldn't do it on a regular basis.
Okay. And then the Health Scholarship Fund supports staff training and education. The TV salaries for 2024 were not fully loaded by finance. So overall, as a department, they loaded all of them, but they didn't put all the dollars into TB, which is $5,200. They put some into 5110 or nursing. So overall, for the year, we had the correct budget. They just had it in the wrong buckets. So this year, I gave her the names and what positions are supposed to be there, and she has corrected it for the new year. So, as of today. And then we do have some supplemental requests. Nursing is requesting 1 vehicle, capital outlay. They need a car to meet deliverables. They had a car that was taken out of commission because it was too old. It wasn't safe for the road. So that would be replacing that one. And then environmental has 2 that they're requesting in the supplemental process. She had one that was in an accident, right, Patty? Correct. And then another one that was taken out of service also. And that will help her, because she has a shortage of vehicles for field staff. When we met with county, it'll come down to the garage, Rob, making the decision on what departments get what vehicles, because they only have a limited budget, so, but ours will be put into that increase, so. And then for personnel, we have a position in animal control that they would like to take from a 3/4 time position to a full-time position. And then in community health, same thing, a 3/4 time position taken to a full-time position also. So those are in the supplemental request. Those will go to the county, they'll review them, and then they'll let us know if they're approved. So. The other documents in the packet, so the county had asked for us to add our functions in the summary for our departments to 51 and 52, and they were looking for us to identify mandated and essential services. So that was in the original packet sent. What I gave you today were just the summary, and then these documents had some changes on them, so I wanted to make sure you had the most current document. So our FTEs are correct, but it was brought to my attention that I have some in the wrong buckets. So I'll meet with nursing and community health to get them in the right buckets for the final report. So, but overall, our total FTEs is correct. And then if you, again, look at the Department 51 summary, we added the functions for the mandated and essential services on here. That wasn't on the summary before. And the TD one, I believe the TD one stayed the same, right? Did you add anything to that one, Melissa?
The mission statement was updated in both of them, and then just adding, no, I don't think we updated anything other than,
Functions.
yeah.
And then also part of your packet are your highlights and goals. So we have our 24 highlights by each division. And then what each division is setting for the goals for 25. These last documents that I'm talking through, these are ones that are required for the budget packet for the county. They need them for the GFOA award for the budget document, for their award.
For those who don't know, do you want to say what GFOA?
Oh, Government Financial Officers Association. So when the county does the CAFR or the ACFR every year, the annual financial report, that also goes to GFOA for review. And then they make sure that we meet all the criteria that's needed for the documents. And if we do, then we win the award. For the ACFR, I know we've won it for the last 20-some years. And I think for the budget document, she's probably around 16, 17 years now, winning the award for the county. So. Projected payouts, so these are going to be positions that, because we have a max of 1,800 hours for sick time that somebody can accrue. So I have to project out through the end of the year, if nobody takes any more time, what the projection would be at that point. And then the county does a calculation and then does a payout for them. Patty, do they convert? Do you still have the option to convert? You do, to vacation time, right? Right. Okay. So again, this document is just projecting out where I think they'll be at the end of the year if they don't take any sick time. In here are the position change forms. Those are the ones for animal control and community health. The two positions that we would be taking from 3/4 to full-time. The one position is for animal control is due to increased requests for online animal registration, complaints, relinquished forms, ordinances, This will allow for an extra day of work in the week for them to process these requests. And then for community health, it's moving the position to meet the deliverables of both grants. Position will be funded by the grants. So that one, especially being funded by the grants, that one probably definitely will go through and get approved because it's outside funding. So we're not asking for general fund dollars. And then there's performance indicators. So these are just year over year, different services that we provide and data to show where we're at, like food establishment inspections, private sewage and water, vision and hearing screenings, wellness screenings, different caseloads for breast and cervical cancer, WIC, vaccinations. So it's just performance indicators showing where we've been, where we ended 23, 24, and then what we're projecting for 25. This FTE equivalents, these are, we have a total of 120.91 FTE. Last year we had 119.93, so we're slightly higher. We must have moved somebody up within the year, or maybe it's two positions that, again, went from a 3/4 to a full-time position or something. I will update this once I talk to Megan and Susan, because she said that, or they said I have something in the wrong bucket, so I'll fix that before next week. And then the salary cross-charge sheet, this is just, I have to show the county, anybody that is not directly in just the general fund, I have to show them how they're split out. So if they're, some of the nursing staff also work in TV, so they're split, so I have to show that split. And then anybody on grants, I have to show me splits. Are they 100% grant? Are they partially general fund and partially grant? So that's what this is doing. I don't do it by name, it's by position number. And then the last two documents in the packet are the capital outlay for the vehicles. Are there any questions?
I have a handful.
You have what?
I have a handful.
Okay.
You just mentioned vehicles, so I was gonna ask one on that. You mentioned that we have to get the vehicles from Rob and Department of Transportation, is that right?
He's in the garage, the sheriff's garage, so he handles all the vehicles.
He handles all those. Now, you said they're gonna assign a vehicle to us, or they decide what vehicle we get, but
Yeah, so everybody puts in their requests for the year, and then there's a budget.
Okay.
County has a budget for vehicles.
And then we pay money to the sheriff's department?
No, it comes out of
garage,
a capital account on the county side.
Okay. But that money is reflected on our budget.
It's not in our budget. The capital requests are, we're asking them for general fund dollars of their money
I see.
to buy the vehicles.
I see. Okay. All right.
So it's not part of
We don't
our
use health
budget.
department money for the vehicles. The money comes from the county.
It comes from the county's capital fund.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do those typically go through? Like, we're not asking, I'm assuming, for a lot, 3 vehicles for 2
We are not
departments.
asking for a lot. We ask every year.
We typically,
We did get 2 new vehicles this year.
Right, so there's
So-
a couple things going on. It's the replacement, as they
Schedule.
go through the cyclones, so there's
Sure.
replacement schedules for the vehicles. And so, but then there's also the issue that we have more field staff than positions,
Mhm.
than we have vehicles to have everyone on as they need to be. So
Oh,
that's been something we've been trying to work on over the past several years, is to get that number up.
Okay.
But then part of it is always replacement of vehicles that are just old and they're not worth repairing anymore, and then it'll take months. Or
Right. I've seen some of our vehicles that look like they're
unused.
well used, is
Yeah.
the good phrase. Okay.
Does are the vehicles purchased through a state bid or how?
I don't know if it's through a state bid. I know they have somebody that they always, yeah.
It's just recently you haven't been able to get vehicles, so they either have had to do them locally or find them another way.
It looks like they can get chargers. 'Cause
Say it again?
Looks like they can get
Well, that's
chargers,
sheriff's.
because the sheriff's deputies always look like they have new cars.
We get Compass.
Okay, I have another question. I noticed that you're talking about the amount of dollars that will become from the county budget to make up the shortfall from our expenses.
Yes.
26%, I think you said.
32.
Oh, 32%, thank you. Is that a pretty customary percentage for the past, compared to the past?
It is, yes. And that 32 is only, it doesn't include fringe costs. So that is just the difference between our revenue and our expenses, and then what they're covering that gap on. But our budget does not include fringe costs, so insurance, FICA, IMRF. The county pays for that. So there is additional,
Except for grants.
except for grants, yes.
So there's a separate fund on the county side that pays for those. So we don't see those.
And our-
They're not coming, they're not part of our budget. The county covers those and has another funding. Okay,
But we still account for those liabilities on our expenses?
county does.
County does for those. So the 32% difference is just what our actual costs are without the fringe cost, and then the expected revenue to come in.
But then here on the expenses side, for like personnel, as I assume where those costs would normally be borne, are they
But
not,
they're not reflected in
they're
here.
not reflected?
No, only the grants, fringe costs
Okay,
are reflected here.
I guess, it seems odd to me, but I have no context to base if that is odd or not, so, okay.
It has been that way, so nothing's changed.
Yeah, nothing's changed.
Should there be a footnote that says that?
Well, I think in the updated form, it does say excludes.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
it doesn't.
For non-grant positions.
Okay.
Any grant position, we have to cover all of those costs.
Yeah, I would have assumed we would have to cover all the fringe costs, right? I find the term, this is not just to this, but it's like fringe costs, it's the cost of
Right,
taking
so they
care of
are,
employees, like, I don't know.
right, they're covered, it's just they're not reflected in our departmental budget nor anybody else's departmental budget, because the county has a separate
Sure.
way of.
Well,
It
County
seems
for
strange
those?
to anybody else, like.
yeah, well, and they have it that way too for like FICA and IMRF, because there's money that has to be paid out of those funds. They're separate funds, each one of them,
Sure.
that has to be then paid out to taxes, the IMRF. They send IMRF for insurance, it goes back to the insurance costs. So each one of those has its own separate fund.
Okay. I'm never of the belief that that all of our revenue should be accounted for either by grants or fees or fines. We are a service, we are not necessarily a business, we're not here to have exactly a balanced book. Some of that money is gonna come from the county, that's how it is. However, it seems strange to me that aren't really listing a true accounting of our costs, because those fringe costs are an additional, probably a significant amount that's not in here.
And Karen and I have had a discussion that we are going to get those calculated costs, but we don't know what the employee always is taking for their benefits. So, but we agree that we want to know those costs, so, because that opens up a different kind of conversation. To know the actual cost of.
If anything, it makes it values the amount that we're requesting from the county.
Correct.
And if that makes it easier for them to digest, then I guess that's a benefit, but the reality is that there is some additional money in there that, okay.
You could assume that with the fringe costs, the health department receives more than 32%.
From the county.
Correct. Okay.
But all we can reflect on here
Is our direct
adequately
budget.
is what we know based on the budget, but we acknowledge and know there are more costs that are sitting out there that are being borne by the county, right? So that number is not a true number of the entire cost.
And those numbers show up in somebody's budget, human resources or finance department or some.
Karen, do you know where that?
So it's at the finance level. Again, there's separate funds on the county's books. So there's an actual IMRF fund, and only IMRF goes into that fund for everybody in the county. Same with the FICA, the taxes. They have a separate fund too, and everybody's for the county goes into that fund, as well as insurance. We're self-funded, but there is a separate health insurance fund that all claims come out of. That's where they're paid out of.
And the finance department is responsible for overseeing that.
Mhm,
and
correct.
for accountability for those numbers.
Yes, yep. And they get audited in the annual audit by Baker Tilly every year.
Anyone else before I ask another question? I noticed that 2024 is projected, several of the figures were projected lower than 2023. So both the revenue, the budgeted revenue, even like food inspections, which I was kind of curious. I'll make sure I read that right. I wrote that down.
As in projected revenue?
Not as revenue, where did I see that? Performance indicators.
Oh,
For
those are,
2023, the actual food establishment inspections were listed at 5,663, but for 2024, they're listed at 4,500. As the budget is different than, what maybe where we'll be. And then projected for 2025, we're at 5,000. I was just curious, I would have thought we were gonna be higher.
Right, so there's a number of factors kind of that go into it when I'm looking at those. So, that's all inspections, that's temporary food, re-inspections, et cetera. And at the time that we had the higher numbers, by ordinance, we were required to do 2 inspections for every medium risk category 2. Now we, by ordinance, do 1. So the numbers do get adjusted somewhat with that. So I try to roll them up to what I estimate the realistic number is.
Perfect, that makes total sense. I was like, wait, we're coming out of COVID, we probably should have had more, I see more restaurants, okay. Thank you, that makes total sense. And then for the revenue. Yeah, between 2023 actual and 2024 budgeted, we were just down about 70 grand for revenue projected versus what we actually brought in 2023. Although it doesn't show what we actually budgeted for 2023, so I don't know if I have some concept there. But it's pretty close. It was a little lower, and I was just wondering why there was a contraction in several different things I saw. That makes total sense. Thank you.
Mhm.
That concludes my time.
Anyone else have any questions?
Back on the fringe benefits, I'm looking at this sheet, would be your page 3 of 19. In the expense report, it doesn't show Social Security, Medicare, IMRF, health insurance contributions.
So this is an all, so this is the whole department rolled up. And in that number is 5111, which is where all the grants reside. So
So
those
these are
are,
grant.
this is all of Department 51, which 5111 is part of it and has the fringe costs in it for the grant positions.
Okay, so that's then been rolled into here, so that's why it's.
all
getting-
rolled up under 51.
Okay, understood. Is there any items that have been left off the budget that people would want considered?
No, I think we covered everything that we had before and what we needed. So the only additions really are the new grant and then any reductions in grants. So the local health protection, we had been reduced from last year. We now have our application in, so that'll come back to you as a resolution. So to add those dollars in once we apply and get approved. So, but yeah, everything else was the same.
I have no more questions.
I'm sorry, what?
I have no further questions.
I think it's an immense document.
Yep.
There's a lot of dollars in there, there's a lot of moving parts. It's very difficult to keep an eye on all of it, so in general, I just look over things to see how they correlate year over year. Maybe not the most, I'm sure there's more investigatory ways to do that. But I did one thing that comes to mind is, it is pretty incredible. I know we talk about 32% comes from the county, but really that means 68% of it
Correct.
is funded by this department to provide these services, and I think that's incredible. The amount of grant funding that the staff goes out and obtains, fines and fees that I think are reasonable, everyone I've ever seen, nothing just seems like exorbitant, and I think the department does a really good job, and the divisional directors do a really good job. Public health administrator does a really good job. All the staff do a really good job about being cognizant of the dollars that come from this. And none of the requests are, exorbitant. If I look at just the cost of groceries in the last couple of years, I think we've done a great job keeping level, so.
Well, we also, and maybe Karen mentioned it, but we are asked every year, at least since I've been here, to do a maintenance budget. Maintenance basically means the same amount that you asked for last year.
Right.
There are some exceptions to that, like if you need a widget to do your job, like a computer, that is not a supplemental request, right? You have to have that. So in those cases, there is some fluctuation. So based on what your comments, is there anything you would like us to prepare differently for Monday? Anything to add?
I think I would turn around, I would have figured I was asking you that, and the divisional directors in terms of, my feeling is that this is very lean. That's just my feeling, based off of comparing this numbers, the amount they've gone up or the projected to go up, compared to the other things in our world right now.
Oh.
And I'm just wondering, does the department feel that they're getting the support they need?
Oh, okay, that wasn't my question, but that's a good question. My question was more like, is there more information, data, different way to communicate the information that you all would like to see by Monday?
I don't think there's a way to make a spreadsheet that's 500 rows easier to read.
Good point.
It just
But
takes.
I wrote down your questions, so we can try to cover some of those additional points. I am sure there are things that people would request, right, if the sky was the limit. But I think staff have already sat down with county, right? They've gone through the budget. The supplemental requests are considered reasonable. It doesn't mean we will get them.
Okay. Thank you. Proud of you guys.
There are many other, I'm gonna say I'm still new to this. This is my first finance committee meeting. Just a preface. There are other ways to get vehicles, for example, like other foundations or grants or community activists. Because this is a government-funded organization, are we not allowed to, for example, try to receive vehicles in a different way if these requests are rejected? Does that make sense?
Like if there was another funding source, so keep in mind, I'm not gonna say no, somebody might feel free, somebody who's been here longer to disagree. In my time here, I don't think I've seen that, although maybe we've asked for a vehicle in a grant in the past.
We did local health protection.
Yeah.
We did on the respiratory grant too, and tobacco.
out of service. So
But in terms of like, we can't just go like Ferraris, like what's happening here? We still have to go through the resolution process for the county to accept that, assuming that we could get it in another manner.
Because the county ends up becoming responsible for maintenance, insurance, et cetera.
But if they're not getting what they need,
You gonna give them your car?
You're gonna buy us a car?
It's a nice car, I saw it.
I work for a nonprofit, right? No, I'm just like, another board that I'm on, that organization just received a vehicle through a foundation that they wrote a grant for a project. Like, to me, we are just as deserving of vehicles needed to do the work that you're doing. So I just didn't know if there were other ways.
Well, I mean, it's a good question. I would also say, if we get on this county rotation and we have a vehicle, that is to our benefit, because then the county is going to maintain that car. They're going to replace that car when it's time to be replaced. Versus, I am not sure if we were awarded a vehicle from a grant that it would necessarily happen. I would hope that they, I mean, they're taking it in as property, right? Adding it to the inventory. I'm just not sure about if it becomes an automatic, but they are budgeting year over year, maybe not for some type of replacement cost.
It's just curious. Thank you for saying that was a good question.
Excellent question. I'll upgrade it to excellent.
I am seeking reassurance.
Other excellent questions.
Was there a more presentation or from any other, I mean, you did a great job.
Just budget,
Right.
dry budget.
It just feels like it's so huge that it should take more time, but honestly, I've looked over it and I just.
Very detailed.
And again, for the most part, I mean, we have to maintain a flat budget. The only thing that we can increase is if we have additional dollars coming in from somewhere else. So grants and stuff.
And those things require to do your job. I guess I was we've talked about the vehicle enough times, and I think it's because it's shocking to me that, like, you have personnel who don't have vehicles, they can't go out and do their jobs. What do you do? Just, do you have Uber come pick them up? Maybe the deputy take them somewhere, or?
I mean, I think there's recognition that vehicles are necessary.
Right.
The thing is we're just getting in the same queue with everyone else that, in every other department that needs vehicles too. So, I mean, I'm really confident that we're going to get the vehicles that we need. We just have to keep working through the process until we're, and just kind of continue to make the case that, that we need them. But if that were to happen, then our next thing would be to go right back, obviously, and ask that question, how are we going to solve that problem?
Okay. Even today, right, you have X number of vehicles. If one of them needs service, how many vehicles in reserve do we have? Because you should always have more, you should always have more vehicles than you need for those purposes, because that always crops up. And even if it's not, divisionally different, that'd be fine, right? If environmental health has an extra vehicle and, animal control or anyone else's is down, well, we can borrow that one. But do we have any reserve?
No.
We would call it reserve.
Yeah.
We do have one car that we share, but I wouldn't say it's a reserve car.
So, and then what we also do is we try to schedule those maintenance type things that need to be done when someone's going to be off or when we can free up a vehicle and work around that. So we have currently vacant positions, vacant field positions. That does give us that little bit of flexibility, but that can become a problem.
When we get these 3 new vehicles, or when, okay, assuming it happens, will that leave us with a buffer or just take us up to where we needed to be at the minimum?
It's going to take us up to close to where we need to be for the minimum.
Okay, then I'd like to see, maybe we request more. Because that's not a good way of doing business. If you are required to do these jobs, you need us to do your job, and you're scrambling to find cars. I mean, it doesn't fly at the fire department in the cop shop. So, seems like a reasonable request. Figure out how many vehicles we need and then go +2. Or how many vehicles total in the fleet for the health department? If we had to guess.
You give me a second. Does anybody know off the top of their head? Otherwise, I'm gonna pull it up.
17. We have 24.
Okay. So let's get 26. Or,
Down 3, and Kyle, you're suggesting we ask for 4.
I would suggest we ask for
5.
and then settle for 4, and then ask for +1 again the next time.
But does the county work like that, right?
Well,
Like,
if the
will-
county says no, I want to know where the reserve vehicle comes from. When theirs are broken down, whose can they borrow? There's other departments. Put them in a snow truck, a plow truck.
You're asking for 2 vehicles, just
3.
3.
So 2 for environmental and 1 for nursing.
I think there's a typo on mine.
Oh, okay,
I see.
okay.
Yes,
It's
I
actually
noticed that. Yeah.
Ann pointed it out. There's
Yeah.
2 plus Susan's is 1.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm sorry, say again,
Total of 3 vehicles that were
3
requested.
vehicles?
Yeah,
that were requested.
in this budget.
But Kyle's suggesting that we request a reserve of 4.
Have we had instances when we couldn't go out and do our jobs because we didn't have a vehicle?
We have definitely had, I can only speak for environmental health, but we've definitely had instances where it was difficult. We were scrambling to try to meet that need, yes. And when we have borrowed, Mary Ellen has shared, and we have shared environmental, and Susan shares hers likewise. So,
How long do you keep a vehicle for?
that's really a decision that's made strictly by the supervisor of the garage, and that's Rob Richardson who does that. And so I think his long-term plan is to keep them less time so they have greater value, so that when they trade that in or sell it, then they're getting something back in, so expending less each year when they're, replacing those vehicles. But we do have some right now that are quite old, that are well used, as we said, but I think his long-term goal is to reduce that time so that there's more value in the cars as they're turned over.
And I think the county's on board with that too.
Yes, I think so.
They're just not there yet.
Don't mind just being the squeaky wheel if we have an idea of how many instances we've been unable to sortie our personnel to whatever job they needed to do because of a vehicle. I think that would be a reasonable way to say, hey, we asked for 3, but these were all these times that we couldn't go and do our job because we didn't have a vehicle. Can we ask for another one? But that's just me. I'm open to, what the divisional directors think. You're the ones who deal with it when there's a problem, so do you think it's worth asking for?
I think it's always worth asking.
That's how I feel too.
Yeah, I think that's the answer. We can ask.
I would think that each division would be asking for vehicles each year. Animal control's gotta be going through vehicles.
Yeah, we're getting one this year, getting a new truck from our truck. So he does have it this year we're in right now.
But nothing for next year's on the budget.
He's replaced most of our vans since I've been over there. So there'll be 2 once we can get bigger vans. The last vans that we got are smaller.
Okay.
We call them ice cream trucks. Kind of looks like an ice cream truck. So they're smaller, that you can't use them for all of your activities. So once he can get the inventory of bigger vans, then he probably will replace the 2 other vans. They don't quite need it yet, but he has us on a pretty good system. He doesn't like to keep ours too long.
Is that done outside of this process?
Yes.
Yes, it's not outside this process, but I still have, the switch over, the replacements, he knows when the mileage needs to be done or when they've had too much service, like the truck, he said he had to get that replaced. It's costing too much for the service on the truck. So it is outside of this process. When I got the Compass, he had taken a van out a couple of years ago and didn't replace it, and I said we really need another vehicle to replace that, so we were able to get the Compass. So we haven't got any we haven't increased our vehicles, but we've gotten them replaced.
Is it the same with all the divisions?
That's very typical, right?
So these 2 are gonna be adding to the fleet.
Correct.
Mine's replaced.
But hers is replaced. So when there's an accident or something happens, he can't always replace it depending on the funding. So Susan's trying to replace one of hers, I'm trying to increase the number of vehicles in environmental health.
But on an accident, shouldn't their insurance cover that replacement?
Well, we had that this year and they did not. They did not immediately replace it. That's really a decision I think that's made at the county level. We're not part of that. I don't know how they make that determination, but.
Yeah.
Maybe every division should have one spare vehicle. And
it's,
then maybe, and then you actually thought it occurred to me, maybe even by classification, because like having a compass, but that's not gonna help you go capture dogs or something. Like you need a classification, you need every vehicle that you need. You need an engine truck and you can't have.
and then we got a new division. Megan, are you equipped?
We have a brand new compass we got this year, and then we have our emergency response truck. So for my division, I feel like that's a good fit for us.
At least you're close to, like, proximity wise, but if you need one, you're kind of,
Yeah, we have 2 out of commission right now.
you're away from them. It's not like you can walk across the parking lot and ask to borrow the keys.
Well, we wouldn't be throwing any animals in them either, so.
True, I just mean in general, probably for other vehicles, but. I don't know. Thoughts? You guys agree? Disagree?
What do you think would happen across the hall
Um,
if you had another vehicle in here?
Well, I mean, we would just let them know, I think, as a result of this meeting or Monday's meeting, that the recommendation is the board is requesting an additional vehicle or an additional 2 vehicles.
So
They will allow the supplemental request, I believe, to go through. Whether or not all of those vehicles get approved, I think is the question.
Right.
We definitely want the 3 vehicles we've requested to go through, but there's no guarantee that all 3 would go through. Now, it's something, it's unknowable at this time.
Right. Okay.
But the county has supported the request of the 3, but again, keep in mind, every department has supplemental requests. And then the county, not us, they prioritize those requests and give them a number. And my recollection is that summarized sheet of all the supplemental requests goes before the county board to show the priorities. And then they make their recommendation, like we'll fund all the number 1 priorities and some of the number 2s. But they do not ever, I have not seen it happen, where they approve all the supplemental requests.
But if you don't ask.
No, true. So I think there's nothing wrong with asking.
I don't want to add more to your plates, but if we could ask, my feeling would be to ask for an additional vehicle in reserve and to stipulate, hey, these were the number of times we were unable to go out because of lack of vehicle. It's pretty simple. Other departments have reserve vehicles. You guys have important jobs to do. I know if I was the public and I was expecting a visit for whatever, septic, or I need this thing done, and you guys can't show up, and you're telling me it's because your car broke down, I would be just push back my build or whatever,
So is the consensus that you would like us to ask for how many total vehicles?
Do we need a motion, or do you want?
No, I don't think so. Just going into Monday, we need to update the forms, right, before Monday.
Well, that should be done in a motion. Is the committee should
Oh, make the recommendation, yep.
make the recommendation to move this to the full Board of Health for adoption to be sent to the county board, and then as part of whoever makes the motion, include that the additional vehicle requests.
Right.
And then staff will put that into the document to come before us
For Monday.
next Monday, but it'll be in the motion, so it'll be proper.
I'll make the motion But do the three of you feel okay with that?
Yeah.
So do the department all have extra cars, or do they all
I
just have
cannot
the
answer that
minimal?
question without more research. I have no idea if,
Because why not just have like extra loaner cars at the
oh,
garage?
for the county as a whole.
Right. Instead of
Good
being like the
question. I
nursing
can't, does
department
anybody
needs
know
like
the
an
answer
extra
to
car.
that?
Are you saying for the health department or for
No, I
the
think she's
entire
saying
county?
for the county as a
County.
whole.
County.
So like if the health department car breaks down, there's 1 or 2 loaner cars at the garage that they can use for the day until it's fixed.
Sure, that would be great.
Does such a system even exist?
Not to my knowledge.
So maybe that would be an elegant way to put in the request, to say either help us get an additional vehicle for our department or
Create a system where.
get an extra vehicle at transportation or the garage or whoever that it can be borrowed. But they'd probably be borrowed all the time.
That doesn't mean it's a bad idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay. Thoughts?
Start with the request for additional vehicle for the department, and they can always modify that to a reserve pool for the county fleet.
Okay.
Other departments, I can't believe that transportation doesn't have spare vehicles, or the sheriff's department doesn't have spare vehicles, or planning and zoning doesn't have spare vehicles. They've got to.
Right.
We just don't.
Right.
I may ask.
So we're gonna ask for 4 total then?
So I'll make a motion to, what's the word? Approve the budget, to move it to the Board of Health as a whole for recommendation to the county board with stipulation of an additional vehicle request for 4 vehicles total, 1 extra for reserve. Is that clear?
Okay.
Okay.
So it's been moved by Kyle Markison to approve this budget with the addition of an extra vehicle. So requesting 4 vehicles rather than 3. And we're gonna send that on to the Board of Health. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll second it.
Okay. So seconded by Sarah Clark. Okay, do we want to roll call it?
Mr. Markison,
Yes.
Ms. Clark,
Yes.
Dr. Amsler,
Yes.
Dr. Katz,
Yes.
That's all.
Is there a need to go into executive session?
Okay. So it's approved unanimously.
And Barbie will make that presentation at the board on Monday.
Yes.
And we'll update all the information to reflect that change.
Sorry for the extra work.
Dr. Amsler, we just need a motion to adjourn.
That's it, we're done? Okay,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
okay,
I'll second.
okay.
All in favor?
Moved by Mr. Markison and seconded
Dr. Katz.
by Dr. Katz.
Good voice, Hope. All in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you, Karen, for helping me out
Yes.
so much.
You're welcome.
ladies for putting up and gentlemen for putting up with my initial.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Night, thank you.
Mary Ellen, I got a story for you.